really mean. So a couple of traits that we're going to go through. When we talk about cities, and again, whether these are small town cities or big cities, again, whether it's Tokyo or the middle of Kansas, and or we're looking at Dodge City, Kansas, or we're looking at Boulder, Colorado. These are still areas that have certain traits. First of all, we'll see that cities are central. Cities have a certain centrality to them in terms of their regional location. Cities have population density. They have high levels of human occupation. They also have a relationship, and that relationship is to what we call the hinterland. And again, the hinterland is the rural areas that, in a sense, supply and, in a sense, feed off of the cities. And then, of course, cities are functionally complex. That means they do a lot of things. So let's take a look at each of these as we kind of move through it. So we're going to begin with the idea of centrality. All right, so I brought up a map of the United States, continental United States, with all of what we call the major cities. These are cities that have kind of been looked at and are deemed important cities in the United States. And there's a lot of them. What we notice about them, though, is that they kind of have an almost uniform distribution. In other words, the distance between them is kind of constant, and they begin to cluster. And so this is when we talk about centrality, they in a sense exist as central to other areas. I've zoomed in and we're going to be looking at Ohio, and what I want to focus on is, in a sense, how we see this centrality. And one of the things you're going to notice very quickly is that if you look at virtually all of the counties, you're going to notice that in each county there's one, maybe two, of what we would call cities, or at least major towns. This is what we mean by centrality. In each one of these counties, we have an urban area. And each one of those, in a sense, influences that county. If I zoom in a little bit more, what we're going to see is that, again, when we look at population density, again, the density starts here. Again, if we kind of look at Columbus, here's the center of Columbus, and each of these areas has one kind of satellite area of urban population density. But then it kind of peters out, so it's central. And again, if we keep zooming in, what we're going to begin to see is, again, colors indicate population density, center, then we begin to have lower population, then moves out. And then again, it doesn't start again till we get out to here. And so again, cities are central. Cities have a centrality to them. Now the next piece we're going to talk about is density. Cities have dense populations. And again, when we kind of begin to combine these two things together, look what we see. This is population density. And what you'll notice here is that each one of the counties literally has a single core area of high population density, and then very quickly it falls away. And so again, we see these clusters, the central characteristic, and then low population density around them. We move to another county, high concentration, low population density around it. So centrality and density. Okay, now the next piece of this, we're going to be talking about, again, the connectivity. Cities are connected to their hinterland. And what I've got here are a couple of different things. It's a rather complicated map, and I'm going to turn some things on and off here. But I want you to look at how we think about, for example, Dayton and Columbus here, and then here's Akron and Pittsburgh. So let's take a look at what I'm adding and taking off of this. First of all, let's just look at the Us Freeway System. And so what we see here is that all of our centers, the bigger they are, the more connected they are to each other and then to the hinterland. Now, the way we also can see that connection is when we look at highway access. And so with the map I'm going to put up now, the layer that I'm going to show you, is relationships between this highway access, or the highways, and the access to the hinterland. So again, if you think about the urban areas, the cities as the core, I turn this on, and what we see, all of the areas on here indicate where we have access: 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute, and 10 minute. And all of these areas in the hinterland are able to feed on to the interstate system to get to the cities. Now I can make this even more significant if we look at, for example, our rail system in the United States. So if we turn on the rail system, we'll see in fact that throughout North America, and I can even zoom out a bit here, what we notice is that the rail system, again, connects the cities to the hinterland. Supplies going in, finished products going back out, or the breaking of trade between areas. But again, cities have connectivity to this area that supports them, and in fact, they support. Okay, finally, I want to talk about what we call functional complexity. That means that cities do a lot of things. And what I've left on here are the railroads going into Pittsburgh. We're going to look at Pittsburgh now, and I'm going to kind of pull all these things together. So we notice that Pittsburgh has high population density relative to its hinterland. The population begins to fall off. Pittsburgh is obviously central to western Pennsylvania. It has a high level of rail connectivity, not to mention all the highway complexity. But we also have this functional complexity. And what I'm showing you here is what we call a zoning map. And so for Pittsburgh, what zoning means is this is what areas are allocated to certain things, or in a sense, what things are permitted there. And what I want you to notice is how many different types of landscape are zoned in Pittsburgh. Everything from planned units, specially planned educational medical institutions. Obviously, we see Pitt and Carnegie Mellon right up here. We see parks, general industry, neighborhood industrial, urban industrial, highway commercial, local commercial, etc., 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 etc. It's functionally complex. It is a landscape that does many things in close proximity. So that's a city. Functionally complex, connected to its hinterland, high population density, and central to its region. We'll see you next time.